Greetings members of 4+ and internet goers who stumbled upon this video battle report. This is the first in an ambitious series of what I hope to be thousands of battle reports eventually. I did the math on it and figure if I play 3 games a week till I die, it will be roughly 5,304 battle reports, assuming that, I live to a ripe old age. The other potential is that I could completely peter out after this because it's too much work, and this will be the only one. But anyhow, let's get into this. We rolled up some random terrain, ended up with 5 pieces total. A mysterious forest, a building, a banestone, a blazing barricade, and a ghost fence. Nothing phenomenal or game-breaking. Board's pretty sparse. It's going to make movement pretty easy. Not a lot of cover, which is okay. Neither of us are playing very shooty armies. Yes, the Empire is not very shooty this time. We are playing the Dawn Attack mission, and for the most part, all of us, or every single unit, ended up in the center deployment zone, except for 1 unit of Senegors for me ended up on the left, and 1 unit of his Knights ended up on the left as well. And we'll take a look at the units. Starting from left to right, what you see here is the Empire has deployed a 10-man Knightly Orders unit with full command. Next to it is a Hellblaster volley gun with a Master Engineer upping its ballistic skill. The next 3 units are part of a single state troops pick. A detachment of 15 Halberders, a Horde block of Spearmen with full command, and the Spearman number 41, 42 with the Sergeant. Another detachment of 15 Halberders. In the Spearman unit is his Warrior Priest with the Sword of Anti-Heroes, a Captain of the Empire BSB with a Standard of Discipline, upping the leadership of his General of the Empire, who's also with them, and he has the Sword of Strife and Armor of Meteoric Iron along with a Luck Stone. Additionally, in the Spearman unit is his level 4 Wizard. His level 4 Wizard took the Lore of Heavens, has Harmonic Convergence, Wind Blast, Thunderbolt, and Comet of Cassandra. The only war gear on the level 4 Wizard is the Forbidden Rod. Very dangerous war gear to take on your level 4. In front of the far left Halberders is the Steam Tank, a very pretty old metal Steam Tank. Behind the Steam Tank on the left is a detachment of 12 swordsmen. Next to them is the 24-man Great Swords unit with full command that they belong to. Along with the Great Swords is a Warrior Priest. He has a Warrior Bane Sword, an Enchanted Shield, and strangely enough, a Crown of Command. The Great Swords are already stubborn, so the Crown of Command is redundant. I think that when my opponent deployed, he actually got his Warrior Priest switched. I think he wanted the Crown of Command with the Spearmen, but as we found out later on in the game, he had put them in the different units. Also, the Great Swords have a level 2 Battle Wizard with them. He is a Shadow Lore, he has Miasma and Mind Razor. Lastly, hanging out behind the Ghost Fence on the far left is the final 12-man swordsman unit that belongs to the Great Swords. It's time for a quick meet and greet with the Beastmen. I will be playing the Beastmen today. On the far right there, you have the Senegor unit. It's just a 5-man unit, nothing special about him. Then you've got a 4-man Minotaur unit with a Gorbull in it. The Gorbull has armor of silvered steel and 5-point sword. The name escapes me right now. It's the one that causes stupidity if he wounds a character or a monster. Right next to the Minotaurs is a Tuskor Chariot. And then you go a little further to your left, and we've got a 10-man Ungor Raider unit. Right next to them is another Tuskor Chariot, and then a Gorgon. Next to the Gorgon is a very large horde of Gore with extra hand weapons. In the horde is a Beast Lord with Armor of Destiny, a Shield, and Warrior Bane. A Wargore with my Banner of Beasts. He also has heavy armor, a shield, and gnarled hide. That way we can get him to a 2+ save. This unit has both of my Shaman in it as well. Since I don't have any Bestigors, I basically got to slam all my Gore-sized characters into this unit. I have a level 4 Great Bray with Lore Beasts. This is my close combat build Great Bray Shaman. So he has the brass cleaver, the jagged dagger, and the talisman of preservation. My basic goal with him is to get Savage Beast when I roll the spells, and that can jack him up to 8 attacks at about strength 8 or 9, and he can charge up that jagged dagger for subsequent magic phases to just max him out. His spells as rolled were not spectacular. I did get Savage Beast. I ended up with Flock of Doom, Amber Spear, Savage Beast, and Transformation as I rolled it. I traded Transformation for Wild Form, as I will never cast it with this particular build of the Shaman. In that squad is also my baby Bray. He's a level 2 Shadow Lore. He has Miasma and the Withering. Behind the gore block are some drunk Senegors, just the last 5 of them. And I probably should have mentioned this in the other picture, but the original Senegors that were introduced, they're actually hungover. They're not drunk. As you can see from the forces, the way they've been described, this is a friendly game. There's no Herdstone, no Doom Bowl, no Dispel Scrolls, no Van Horstmans. It's just pretty much we're looking for a close game and we're going to duke it out. I failed to steal the initiative, so essentially my buddy Paul went first. It's my opponent's name. He's the one that owns the Empire Army. Longtime friend, one of the best painters and modelers I've ever met. Anyhow, on his first turn, he cautiously advanced, just moved forward about 4 inches with the great swords and the one swordsman detachment. One of the swordsman detachments stayed behind to guard the ghost fence, maybe looking for a flank charge if I can swing those Senegors around. The spearmen and the halberders advanced about 4 inches also. The steam tank rolled forward 10 on 3 points of steam, saving 2 to obviously shoot the cannon at the Gorgon that it's staring at. The Hellblaster was out of range, obviously, since we deployed 24 inches apart, so he opted to move it forward a couple inches and just a little bit to the left to get behind the Knights as they advanced. The Knights, of course, charged forward about 7 inches, but didn't want to get too close, don't want to get out of position. The Empire had a solid start to the magic phase. He rolled a Winds of Magic with a 6 and a 3 and then channeled 1, making it a 10-6 phase. He got off a Miasma on the Minotaurs, slowing their movement to 3 inches. Next, he got off a Thunderbolt that hit the chariot right to the left of the Gorgon there, and it stripped off 3 of the 4 wounds the chariot had. And then he went for a big Comet of Cassandra, and through pure luck failed to cast it, so that burned up all of his dice. I actually didn't throw a single Dispel dice that phase. In his shooting phase, the steam tank nailed the Gorgon dead on, got 3 wounds off him. It sucks, but you know, that's the life of a monster in fantasy. Cannons blow your arms and legs off. I'm not feeling terribly great about the Gorgon, but you know what? Early in the game, still anybody's game to win. Turn 1 Beastmen, time to get things moving. The hungover Senegors, full speed up the left side. Let's get a flank charge on turn 3, hopefully. The Minnows march their 6 inches because they're slowed down by Miasma. Chariot pulls up 7 inches beside them. The Ungor Raiders, they go ahead and move up to the Burning Barricade. They are in the area of effect of the Banestone, but honestly, I think it hurts other units just as much as it hurts them, especially if they get charged. The 1 wound chariot goes kamikaze across the Burning Barricade into the steam tank and somehow manages to survive the difficult terrain and the stand and shoot of the Master Engineer in the tank. So that's a good thing. Gorgon moves up 8 inches, as do the Gores. Basically, I'm trying to set up to receive the charge from the Knightly Orders, which is what I think is coming. In my pathetic 4 dice magic phase, I rolled a 3 and a 1. And of course, the Empire manages to channel, so it's a 4-4 magic phase. I'm thinking I'm not getting anything off. I managed to get off a Wild Form due to a horrendous Dispel roll. I basically took 2 dice, rolled Wild Form, got an 11 with my level 4. Paul picks up 3 dice because he knows Wild Form's bad. You know, +1 strength, +1 toughness on a huge block. That's never good. Rolls 2-1-1. It's just like, man, that sucks. So His level 4 is now out of the Dispel game. I take my last 2 dice, put up Savage Beast on the Shaman. You know, I'm ready to rock and roll for some combat next turn. The Ungors don't do a darn thing in the shooting phase. That's pretty much expected, though. The Chariot in close combat gets 1 impact hit. Good job. And it kind of sucks because I was hoping to get at least a couple wounds on the Steam Tank, maybe 3 if I was lucky. The Banestone was within 6 inches of him, so that means all my Strength 5 stuff's going to wound him on a 4+. The end result, though, is you know, he does have a 1+ save, so the Boars managed to get a couple wounds on him, and he fails 1 save, so he's down to 9 wounds. This is a good thing because now he's got a 1/3 chance of a mishap, you know, a misfire or a 10 on the artillery dice. So it's a decent turn 1, but pretty much just because Paul's dice hate him. Please ignore the red arrows. We actually forgot to take pictures at the end of the Empire turn 2 and took them during my movement phase in turn 2. But if you just pretend they're not there, we can tell a good story. The Empire's being very aggressive this game. Paul decides, you know, he's going to march forward and select the matchups for the charges when it's my turn. One of my typical strategies when playing Empire is I'll charge detachments, you know, just blast past the main unit, charge the detachment, overrun, and break the line, and then, you know, reform and essentially force him to reform and face me, and then take a charge going sideways, and I can pretty much just overrun down the line. So this is a new strategy. I haven't seen it before. I was surprised by it. The Great Swords, 1 detachment, they march forward 8, you know, basically forcing the Minotaurs to fight the Great Swords, which is a good matchup for the Great Swords. They're both strength 5. I'm doing 12-point wounds when I kill one of his guys. He is doing roughly 15-point wounds on the Minotaurs when he's hitting them. So, you know, tit for tat, he's winning that math equation. The Halberders pull up to the right side of the Steam Tank. You can just see them sitting there. It looks like they're getting ready to come over the bulwark next turn. I'll have to shoot at them with the Ungors. Just like he did on the other side, the Spearmen run forward, get set for a charge from the Gors. Then the Halberder attachment sets up for the counter charge, and then he does something interesting. The Knights don't charge the Gore block, which is a good idea. He's done that in the past, and when those Gores are all buffed up like that, they just smash those Knights. And he's trading, you know, 21-point Knights for 8-point Gores, if that. Usually it's like a 2-for-1 trade. I'm getting 2 Knights for every 1 Gore he kills when I'm buffed that way. So good call, doesn't do it. In fact, what he does is he pulls up and offers me essentially a flank charge, which, you know, I think is kind of crafty. You know, he wants to get maybe the Spearmen or the Halberders into my flank. You know, it's something I had to think about in my movement phase. The Empire has a completely anemic magic phase following movement. It's a magic phase of a 5. Basically, you rolled a 4 and a 1. Shoots a thunderbolt at the Gorgon. I go ahead and dispel it. I want to keep my 3 wounds just in case the cannon misses. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, the steam tank completely ground the chariot up. It's gone. So, you know, I'm hoping that maybe the cannon will miss, the Gorgon lives and can do something, but as you can see from the picture, Gorgon's not there anymore. In his shooting phase, he blasts it with the steam tank and the Hell Blaster, and it goes down. Guy never had a chance. He did get off 1 spell in the magic phase that's worth mentioning, and that's Hammer of Sigmar. He managed to get that on his block of Spearmen, so they'll be re-rolling failed wounds. As expected, my turn 2, I pretty much charge with everything. The Minotaur's crashing at the Great Swords. The Chariot hits the Swordsman detachment next to him to keep him off the Minotaur's flank. You definitely don't want the Minotaurs taking a flank charge or rear charge. They're only leadership 7. They get run down so easily if they lose a combat, it seems. The hungover Senegors, they run up, wheel to get a good angle on the Swordsman behind the ghost fence, and the Ungors hold fast. The Gore unit charges into the Spearmen rather than the flank of the Knights. That's the smart move. Let's just try and end this game. We're just going to go up against the big block to big block. If I can break the Spearmen, it's pretty much game over. The Senegors get an awesome roll. They march and they wheel around the Knights and essentially pull the Knights out of position for at least a turn, if not two, depending on what happens with the Spearmen combat. In the magic phase, it's another bad start. I roll a 5 and a 1. This is one of the things that sucks about magic phases is people say, oh, you got a 6. That's just 1 under normal. Well, no, anytime you roll a 1, it completely sucks because it means your opponent is going to have just 1 less dispel die than you. It's actually the weakest position you can be in. Of course, the Empire channels, so it ends up being a 6-6 magic phase, and I'm just thinking, alright, it's going to be a pretty fair fight between the Gore and the Spearmen. I cast Wild Form with 3 dice. I know it's my most important spell, but I want to be able to cast some other stuff if Paul grabs all his dice to dispel it. He takes 4 dice. He should have me dead to rights. Again, horrible dispel roll. He fails. The level 4 is out of the dispel game. I get off Wild Form, followed up with a 2-die Savage Beast, which he fails to dispel with his level 2, and then followed up with a 1-die Miasma that I shoot across the board at the Great Swords to get their weapon skill down to a weapon skill 2, which will allow the Minotaurs to hit them on 3s and actually swing the combat probably more to my favor than it may have already been. The Ungors do jack and crap in the shooting phase, which, I'm not surprised. This is what the board looks like after close combat's resolved. It's pretty much game over. In fact, basically, I think the game over point was when he failed to dispel that Wild Form after I'd charged. At that point, the Spearmen are wounded on 6s. Even with rerolls, you're not going to get it done. You need to put up some numbers. But we decided to play turn 3 out just to possibly see if something miraculous happens for the Empire, but it's looking bad. The Spearman combat was absolutely crushing. Basically what happened is I charged in, I had all my buffs. When you're fighting the Empire, the key is kill the Warrior Priest before Initiative 3, and then none of the normal guys will have Hatred. They'll still have any buffs he gets up for him, but they won't have Hatred, which is a big deal. I managed to kill his General, his BSB, and his Warrior Priest all before Initiative Phase 3. I got 3 charges on the Jagged Dagger now. End result of the combat, this is what the score was 40-12, and I had disruption going on from his flank charge, so I'm missing 3 points from my rank bonus. So it's 40-12 just on combat resolution. I had 37 wounds. I did 37 wounds to him. He did 7 back to me because of the enhanced toughness. So long story short, they got run down. His level 4 wizard was in there. It's basically, it's all she wrote. Minnows killed a bunch of great swords. They did a great job. They lost 5 wounds total, but they did win the combat. Great swords are stubborn, so they stick. But the Minotaurs at least earned a cheese token for more attacks next round. That's their frenzy ability to get extra attacks. The Chariot smashed the swordsman pretty good, killed 7 of them with the impact hits and all his attacks. But they rolled double 1s and stuck around for next round of combat. All in all, fantastic round of close combat for the Beastmen, and pretty much game over on turn 2. So turn 3 for the Empire, there's not a whole lot to do in the movement phase. Most stuff's tied up in CC or fleeing. The swordsmen, they're going to turn and face the Senegors that are setting up for the charge. Everything else on that side's tied up in CC. The halberders in the center of the table, they go ahead and charge over the burning barricade. The other halberders that are fleeing from the spearman fight that went really poorly actually rally and turn around to face the spearmen, or face the Gore unit. The knights also reform to face the Gore unit and the side of the Senegors. And the steam tank generates 5 steam points. It's perfectly okay. Uses 3 of them to pivot and charge into the gore unit to do some damage. The Empire gets a really big magic phase this time. They end up with 9 dice, 5 and a 4. They get off Mind Razor on the Great Sword unit, so they are going to be smashing those Minotaurs if any of them are left alive. But I save my Dispel dice and Dispel Miasma to make sure that the fight is still unbalanced. The Minotaurs are going to go first, and I want them to hit on 3s, not 4s, and they're going to wound on 2s since they're all strength 5. The Hellblaster volley gun gives it its best effort, tries to shoot the Centaurs there, and just fails to wound them. I think it rolled a misfire. It ended up only shooting 4 shots. It only hit like 1 and then didn't wound. So not a good phase there. Close combat goes really bad for the Great Swords. The Minotaurs absolutely smash them. There's only 5 left, and they failed their Stubborn 8 leadership and run. The Minotaurs obviously can't chase them. They've got the Blood Greed rule that only lets them go D6, so they earn another cheese token and hang around eating the dead. Interestingly enough, the remaining swordsmen right next to them beat the chariot and run it down. Lucky for me, Frenzy confers immune to psychology, so the Minotaurs don't really care that happened. The halberders that charged over the barricade, this is exactly why I put the Ungor raiders behind the barricade. There's 5 halberders in contact. They each take a strength 4 hit, but because the Banestone's there, that means that hit wounds on 2s instead of 3s. So 5 halberders dead right off the bat. Still not enough. They have 10 attacks versus my 10 Ungor attacks. They beat me by 1. Ungors are base leadership 6. They needed a 5. They break and run. So that's pretty much it. Oh wait, there's one more thing. The steam tank. So it grinds through and kills 6 more gores. The toughness 5 on those gores is really brutal. The shaman that's currently at strength 9 and the beast lord currently at strength 7 go ahead and do a make way, and they beat 6 wounds onto the steam tank, so it's down to 3 wounds. At the start of my turn 3, it's just basically cleanup. I charge the fleeing wizard and great swords, force them to flee again since they're already fleeing. I'm able to redirect the charge then to the swordsman behind the ghost fence with the Minotaurs. The Centaurs also charge the swordsmen that are now facing them. I figure, we'll just pinch them, crush them, and overrun, and if I'm lucky I can catch the fleeing great swords and get them too. The Centaur on the right make a very long charge past the knights and the halberders into the Hellblaster volley gun. This was kind of my goal, is to run them up there. Hopefully I break through and overrun and get out of the charge arc. With no magic defense, I get off a huge magic phase. I roll a 6 and a 3. He's got 6 dispel dice, no channels. I go ahead and grab another 3 dice from the jagged dagger charges, so I got a 12 die magic phase. And I get off a large savage beast, which gives all the characters plus 3 strength and plus 3 attacks in the large gore block. And then I cast wild form on top of it, and then I throw a miasma on the knights to subtract a couple of inches from their movement, just to slow them down, just in case for some reason I don't break out of the steam tank. Maybe I can avoid a side charge or rear charge. Well, kind of as predicted, the swordsmen are crushed. I choose to overrun with the Centaurs first so the Minotaurs don't block them, and they get a great overrun and smash into the remnants of the great swords and kill the level 2 wizard that was with them. And that's about it for that side of the board. As you can see, the combat with the steam tank is over. It was actually pretty foregone conclusion once I got those big spells off and had strength 9 and 10. I went ahead and just did a reform after combat, spun around to face the halberders and the knights should they charge, and then the Senegors, they dispatched the Hellblaster and overran and got out of the charge arc of the halberders. So if we were to continue the game, it's over and done. There's nothing left but cleanup. Good game. Thank Paul again for the game. He brought some interesting tactics. Unfortunately, he had some really bad dice at some inopportune times. One of the things we did do when the game was over, if anybody's interested, is we went ahead and did an unbuffed combat between the spearmen and the gores, where basically he did manage to dispel the wild form. So I didn't get the wild form and I didn't get the savage beasts. All I had was just my bestial fury. And the result of that combat was much closer. He only lost the combat by 2 when it was all said and done. I lost probably 3 times the number of gores. I think I lost 18 gores instead of 7 or 6. So really, to me, it was the end of the game was that failed dispel. And it's kind of, just reflecting on the way the game works, I really hate it when a game comes down to just a single die roll like that. It's frustrating because you spend several hours, setting up, and not to mention all the time you spend on the hobby. But it hopefully doesn't happen very often. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the battle report, and if I'm too long or too short, or you want to know more about the armies or the battle, post some comments on the video. Thank you.